Welcome to the post-game live chat. I'm Jared Johnson. This is brought to you by Red River Outfitter. Texas Tech, man, responded with a much-needed victory, 35-28 at home Thursday night over TCU. I want to talk about it. We've talked about a couple losses here, and we had the bye week last week. But if you have any comments, you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I was there at the game, of course, up in the press box. I had the Red Ritter Outfitter rocking pregame, also brought to you by Red Ritter Outfitter, by the way. And then, like I said, at the game, in the post-game press conference, asking Coach McGuire questions and, producing content on Inside the Red Raiders. So check that out. Mighty Joe will have his Jaeger shots. We went ahead and did our day after podcast the night of, since we were there. And we'll have that on Inside the Red Raiders as well. But big victory for Texas Tech because of, don't get me wrong, the season is what it is, but they needed a victory. The fan base needed a victory. To beat another in-state conference rival is huge. Now, how much TCU and Texas Tech are rivals, that's debatable. But the fact remains, this is a Big 12 opponent. This is an in-state opponent. This is a team that you recruit heavily against there in the Metroplex. And Texas Tech now, it's been a disappointing season, but they're 3-0 against in-state conference rivals. They beat Houston, they beat Baylor, now they've beaten TCU, and so that is at least worth something. And the Red Raiders are now 4-5 overall, 3-3 in the Big 12, and at least have a what I like to call a puncher's chance of making a bowl game, which would be nice. That'd be 3 consecutive seasons. Making a bowl game. So in all the practices for the young guys, all the things, it helps you in the recruiting trail. I mean, there's a lot of things that go with it, at least making a bowl game. But the questions are already rolling in. First one comes from Kim Coulter. It says, "Yo, JJ, it's always darkest before the dawn." Hey, I love that Batman trilogy too, by the way. He said, "So let's hope we saw a little bit of light. Oh, and good questions to Joey. Thank you." I kind of let him off the hook, I guess. I wanted to, if they had lost, I would have asked Coach McGuire about that 4th and 1 decision because, that could have really cost. That really could have cost Texas Tech. But I'm an end results kind of guy. They won. There was several good things that happened in the game. There were some questionable things. We were calling it the almost game. Texas Tech almost got interceptions early. Texas Tech almost got first downs here or there, but we're just short. Texas Tech almost gave the game away. TCU almost came back. It was an almost game, but in the end, Texas Tech got the victory. And, hey, man, that's all that matters. By the way, snapped a 4-game losing streak to the Horned Frogs, so that's very important. Next comment says from Joe Gutierrez says, "It was a good game. The Bobby Knight moment of silence was awesome." Yeah, that was really cool. And honoring Josh Young was nice. And the drone show was freaking cool, too. Yeah, everybody's saying – Kim Coulter said, too, the drone show was cool. Yeah, that was it was great because it was really close. It was almost like eye level with us on our right up there where the crane is over the south end zone. The Texas map outline with drones. And Joe said, "What is that, aliens?" Which had everybody rolling. Mighty Joe is one of a kind. They're drones, Mighty Joe. But no, that was a cool moment. I really like that. Some of that stuff is, to me, overhyped and overdone, but that was really cool. That was unique and it was cool. Kim Coulter said, "How about that stupid QB run on Tech's last 3rd down?" I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be honest, man. I've been doing this a long time, been in a lot of press boxes. I've never been kicked out of a press box. I've been warned for being too loud because I'm a loud dude, but I've never been kicked out. There were a lot of expletives when I saw them run a QB power or a QB run with Baron Morton in that situation. I mean, come on. With Baron, Joe and I talked about this in the podcast, which will air Friday, but Friday morning, I'm going to try and get it done tonight so we can just post it tomorrow morning and be there when y'all get to work or what have you. But with Baron Morton, Texas Tech is competitive in the Big 12, especially this year, which for the most part, the Big 12, I mean, you look at the BYU game, if Baron Morton's available, Tech probably wins that game. I mean, you just look at how efficient he's been so far, knock on wood, in terms of not turning the ball over. I mean, you probably don't turn the ball over 5 times like you did, and you probably beat BYU because of it. So the idea that you run Barron in that situation is the nicest way I could say it is questionable. The what I really want to say is idiotic. I don't care about the X's and O's. I don't care about the schematics, all the yada yada blah blah. You got Taj back there. You got your batting ram. If you get it or don't, you ended up not getting it. And Barron took a big hit. I thought he was going to be hurt. And then any chance of making a bowl, the rest of your season is just gone, up in smoke. I really didn't like that call. That bothered me more than the 4th and 1. I didn't like the 4th and 1 either. I think you punt it. McGuire said it in his post-game presser. You got maybe the best punter in the country. He's arguably the best punter in the Big 12. He's up there at least. I mean, he's a very good punter and has been for years. Use him. Yeah, he had a big lead. I get the analytics and all that. He said he almost went for it again later on when they actually punted, and they pinned TCU deep. TCU did end up scoring, but it was a methodical long drive, took a lot of time off the clock. It was the right move. That 4th and 1 going for it on your own 34. I did not like that call. I did not like it before. I sound like Dr. Seuss. I did not like it before. I did not like it after, certainly, but I didn't like it before the result. I just thought it was the wrong decision. I don't care about the analytics, all that stuff. I think in certain situations, you got to say, look, this is the smart. Sometimes it's good to be conservative, and play to some of your team strengths. But hey, all's well that ends well. I didn't ask McGuire about it because, in results, they got the win, but it's filed back there again. I did if they had lost, that would have been the first question I asked. Those 2 questions: like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? They didn't. They won. So here we are. Shine says 3rd and long has felt like an issue all season. Always seems to be someone open right at the line to gain. Not knowledgeable enough to know how to go about working on that, though. One thing about tonight. Now, you mentioned the whole season, and that's something. It seems like that's been like that at Tech for like 20 years, to be honest, where it's 3rd and long and the defense somehow gives up a first down, whether it be a long play or a penalty. But at least tonight, it was clear to me that Tech was playing more soft zone coverage in order to keep things in front of them and make TCU's young quarterback basically more methodically move down the field and hope to force him into mistakes. And he did. He made mistakes. Tech easily could have had 4 or 5 interceptions. They got 2 from Dadrian Taylor Demerson Rabbit, and the last one sealed the victory. So, like, philosophically, normally, I don't agree with that kind of defense. I think that's it's almost like a quasi prevent defense. I don't think it's a sound strategy, but I get what they were doing tonight. Again, the end result was it worked, and so I'm okay with it. But in terms of for the season, I don't know. I mean, they seem to be better than they have been in the past in terms of 3rd and long, but they do give up too many 3rd and longs, which is very frustrating because you think, oh, they're about to get off the field, and then they don't. Matador Mike said, funny, in 2013, Tech beat TCU on a Thursday night, the Fox game, of course, and someone was playing with a drone south of the stadium. Yeah, I don't remember that. That was actually – I hadn't even moved to Lubbock yet, but that was the first game that I came to in a capacity with what was Raider Power at the time. It's now Inside the Red Raiders. So it's been 10 years. It's been a decade now that I've been here, and it's funny that it's like a Thursday night game against TCU at home and then a Thursday night game. And in both games, like, I don't think this one was as ugly as that one. It was 20-10, a lot of goofy stuff. That was the one where DeAndre Washington, who's one of my favorite players, dropped the ball short of the end zone. Baker Mayfield was the starting quarterback. He got hurt. Davis Webb came in and threw a big touchdown, I think, to Bradley Marquez. I may be wrong on that. But that was a kind of a crazy game, the Fox game. You had the Possum tonight. So, yeah, there's the drones, a lot of similarities. It's funny how cyclical life and football and all that can be. But, yeah, a decade. So, for me personally, at least, there was some significance to tonight and all those similarities. Another one from Matador Mike. He says, over under for Taj into the year, 1,400 yards rushing. Well, he's been averaging about 100 yards a game, and he has 3 left. So I guess it's going to depend. If you're asking just regular season, I'll say under slightly. He finishes with 1,300 and something. If you're saying regardless of the season, if they go to a bowl game, so they'd have to win 2 of these final 3, and at Kansas, UCF at home, and at Texas. So that sounds like a big ask, but it's not impossible. So if they go to a bowl game, they play 4 more, and assuming he's healthy, then I think he does get to 1,400. But if just 3, I think probably just slightly under. Joe Gutierrez says there was a lot of explicit language when the refs missed that face mask on Morton. Were those refs from Fort Worth? It seemed like TCU got a lot of favorable calls. They did miss that. And there was a couple of late hits out of bounds. I thought that at least one of them should have been called. One of them replay was clearly, I don't remember if it was Morton or Taj or who it was, but somebody got hit, and they were a good couple yards out of bounds. It should have been called. I mean, you should get that call at home. The face mask was bad, but I thought a lot of the calls on Tech, false starts are false starts. It kind of is what it is. And one of the face masks called on Tech was a face mask. You'd like to see it both ways, but maybe they are from Fort Worth. Kim Coulter says, got to play golf tomorrow. Oh, rough life. Hope you have a good round, man. He says, so he's off to bed, on to KU. Let us pray. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to, see what Kansas does. I do like the fact that Tech has a couple of extra days off. I think that did them good, having the bye week, getting some guys rested, and they'll have at least Saturday off. They don't have to play while Kansas is playing, and maybe that will help because November football in college is really a battle of attrition. Completely different teams sometimes line up than the ones that they originally filled in September. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I'm trying to grasp at positives. I'm hoping that that extra rest will help. And Kansas isn't unbeatable or anything like that. So I'm going to GBYO says, do you think this staff will outgrow analytics? To answer your question, I know McGuire told me before the season they were only going to be more aggressive in terms of sticking with the analytics. And I think that's something they believe in and he believes in. So I would like to see them do more of, it was important that, because McGuire said in the post-game press conference that the book said to go for it late when it was like 4th and 4 or something like that at TCU's 40. And he said some people were telling him, hey, no, look, we got this punter. Let's use him. Let's play defense. And luckily they did that. They pinned TCU inside the 20. Though TCU did go score, it took a lot of time off the clock. And I think that was a big part of the game. Instead of if they had gone for it, if Tech hadn't gotten it, you got the whole momentum thing for TCU too. That at least showed that McGuire will go against the book, which is good because I think sometimes you have to look at the situation and say, let's throw analytics aside and say, this is what's going on. This is where we're at. And I think we should do something different. So hopefully they'll adjust a little bit to where they're not. And I know some people, like mathematicians, will say, well, either you do the analytics or you don't. And I get that. But football isn't just math. It's not as black and white. It's a lot more like life. It's gray, and to be honest. And there are certain situations where I think you got to throw the math and go by out and go by feel. And I'm glad McGuire did that tonight, at least in the second half. GBYO says, for your information, I played high school golf against Kim Coulter. He is a good stick. All right, I'm not surprised. Some good athletes. You got some, good people, good dudes go to Texas Tech, and are Texas Tech fans. Not some, some of the nerds you see at other schools, to be just honest. Patton Jonathan says TCU is not very good. No, they're not very good. And honestly, most of the teams in the Big 12 just aren't very good. But I go back to I think TCU is better than BYU. I mean, they showed that on the field, that's for sure. They crushed them, and you lost to BYU. So, bottom line is conference opponent, in-state opponent. If you want to devalue, don't think that this win was that big, then that is your right. Go right ahead. But it snapped a 4-game losing streak to the Horned Frogs. They figure to be not just rivals, on the field, but on the recruiting trail moving forward. They have been and they will be. So I think this was an important victory on many levels, and you're not gonna change my mind. Ernest Tubb says he thinks TCU is not a bad team either. Well, I think they're not terrible, but they're not great. It's not a great team. I mean, clearly not like the TCU team last year. But it was an important win, like I said. Tubb also said, excuse me, they have lost to worse this season. Yeah, you're right. They have. Tech has. So, it was an important victory. I mean, people can – I try and call it like it is. The loss of BYU was beyond bad. Very, kind of throw your hands in the air like, all right, come on, you lose to this team the way you do. And I thought tonight was a big win. So, yeah. Madro Mike says, tough week for UT and OU. Yeah. In what regard? I mean, I know Oklahoma lost last week, but what is it this week? I guess I don't know what's going on. Unless you're saying they have tough games, I'd have to look at the schedule, man. But yeah, OU losing, that was bad for them, and then Texas with Ewers being hurt, I'm not sure how long he's going to be out, so that's tough. If there's something else, then tell me, man. I've been kind of in my bubble of my own family life and then Texas Tech. Ernest Tubb said he said several times, but why the heck aren't we using Xavier White more? He came up huge last season several times. Yeah, I mean, he came up huge tonight. McGuire said in the postgame presser that was a check at the line of scrimmage to that screen pass that Barron made. And that's a funny comment. But Xavier made a good play, made an explosive play. And it's funny is Xavier, I agree, he's been sneaky good this year when given the opportunity. It's not like he's kind of a quiet producer, I mean, you look up and you think maybe he didn't do a whole lot. And he's got 5 catches for 70 yards. And you're like, what? And he's been like that his whole career. I think it's because he's just such a smooth player that maybe he doesn't feel like he made a big impact when really he did. And I do think getting Xavier White involved more is a good idea. Oh, Matador Mike says Bedlam and UT gets K-State. Yeah, those are tough matchups. Oklahoma has traditionally dominated Bedlam, though. So, but Oklahoma State, man, you got to tip the cap to Gundy because in non-conference it looked like, and honestly, this is just my honest opinion. When I heard Alan Bowman was going to be their quarterback, I was like, well, write them off for this year. They're not going to do anything significant. But, man, they have really adjusted and they've gotten better throughout the year, and that's good coaching, and now they're tough. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Oklahoma. But other than it seems like some really good Oklahoma State teams have lost to some not as good Oklahoma teams in the past. So that's the whole big brother syndrome that you hear about. So that's something they're going to have to overcome. And in Kansas State, I kind of flip-flop with them in Texas because sometimes their physical nature, the way they don't make mistakes, play good special teams, all that stuff, they'll get Texas, but then sometimes Texas's athletes, there is a gap between the athletes Texas have and the ones that K-State recruit. Sometimes Texas gets them with that talent. So that's Texas K-State is always a very interesting matchup to me, and that's going to be something I'm watching Saturday. Lewis Harbor says, but versus BYU, we got 14 burger. Yeah, I know those shirts are kind of like some of the take 3 and 50 burger and all that stuff is kind of like, man, it's hard not to mock. I get what they were doing with it, but when you don't produce, it's like at least Tech, got 2 turnovers tonight. So. And they scored enough to win. So, Lewis Harper says, though, he does agree with me. Today's W was a big win given the situation that we find Texas Tech in. Yeah, I mean, it is. I'm going to go over some stats. I'm not going to do like an hour-long stream, but we're 20 minutes in. I'll do probably another 10 or 15 minutes. So go ahead and get your comments or questions in. But I'm going to go over some stats just real quick. Again, 35-28, Texas Tech. TCU actually finished with more total yards, 440 to 428, but that was largely due to the passing game. You got to give them credit, 353 yards. But Texas Tech really dominated in the ground, 146 yards. I mean, that was largely Taj Brooks finished with 146 yards. He's over 1,000 yards for the season. He averaged 4.7 yards per carry. Did score a touchdown. I mean, they really did a good job, against TCU's big-time running back, which, I mean, when you look at it, coming into the game, I was like, I'm not sure who's better, Amani Bailey or Taj Brooks, not having watched a ton of TCU games. But statistically, they were very similar. But, 19 carries for 57 yards for Bailey. He did score a couple touchdowns, but, Taj clearly looked like the better running back. And Texas Tech's offensive line did a good job, for the most part, in blocking for him. And Tech's defensive line in front, defensive front, did a good job of controlling TCU's running game, which I think played a big role in the victory. Also want to give some credit to the receivers who have been much maligned this year, and rightfully so. Coy Aiken, 8 catches, 78 yards. He had a really solid game. Xavier White, who we talked about before, 5 catches for 71 yards. Miles Price had 5 for 50 and a touchdown. It was really nice to see Dre McCray create an explosive play, which is really why he was brought in. He only had 1 catch, but it was for a 44-yard touchdown. That was nice. And I think, we can praise Taj every game, but Baron Morton, man, 28 for 36 for 282 yards and 2 scores through the air, another score on the ground, no turnovers. Tech was +2. They created 2 turnovers. They really could have had more, but didn't turn the ball over. I mean, you could always point to that. Tech was net -5 against BYU. They were +2 against TCU. Lost to BYU, you beat TCU. I mean, it's football. I think sometimes some of these coaches and analysts try and make it a lot more complicated than it is. I mean, that's the ball game. You stop the run, you're able to run the ball, you won the turnover battle, your quarterback was efficient, you played quality special teams, you got the W. I mean, that's the gist. Joe Gutierrez says it was a big win and the crowd was good for a Thursday night and most of them stuck around. Yeah, to the end. That's one thing that's really cool this year is that compared to in years past, the crowds have stuck around, man. They're not leaving at halftime. They're not leaving in the fourth quarter. And I don't have a great explanation for that, but I'm definitely I appreciate it. I think that's a meaningful thing. Tech needs their home crowd late in the game. They needed them tonight. So that's meaningful. And yeah, the crowd wasn't terrible. There was a lot of students, which was great because they're loud. I think the announced attendance was over 50,000. There wasn't 50,000 fans there, but it was a good crowd. They made an impact, like you said, Joe. They stayed to the end of the game, and for a Thursday night, yeah, considering also the way the season's gone, I think it was a good crowd. Chris Lebowski said, not sure if I missed you talking about already, but what are your thoughts on how the position switches worked out? Yeah, great question. I haven't talked about it yet. I thought they were the right things. I thought Dennis Wilburn was a huge upgrade at center. I will say, though, Rusty Stats was the one offensive lineman that left me shaking my head a couple of times. He gave up a big sack in the running game. He got blown up a couple of times. I don't know what the deal is. I would like to see someone like, say, Landon Peterson, who started Big 12 games last year that Texas Tech won. I'd like to see him get a shot. I don't think Stats is very good right now. It's nothing personal. It's just the truth. And I think Dennis Wilburn was great at center. I think he's a very good center. And then on the other side of the ball, CJ Baskerville, he led the team in tackles, had a couple big hits, a couple of woo hits, the whole crowd, woo. And then Tyler Owens made a couple of plays coming off the edge there, playing star after, switching with Baskerville. So I think those two moves clearly worked to Tech's advantage. The one thing I would say again is I think Stats should be replaced. That's how I feel about it. Ernest Tubb again says, if Taj had an awesome offensive line, he would be unstoppable. He's done great this year regardless. Barron did have a good game for sure. He agrees. Glad they didn't run him much. He can't afford it. Yeah, I don't think you run Barron at all anymore. I know he scored a touchdown. and that's fine. He was untouched, but for the most part, he's going to take some hits, just scrambling and sacks and stuff like that. He didn't take a lot of hits tonight, but let's not have him take unnecessary hits. You just can't afford it at this point. You can't. It is so imperative that Baron Morton stays healthy. It is. So no more QB runs, please. GBYO says Kansas is allowing 174.6 rushing yards per game. We'll take advantage of this. Well, they better, because Kansas's offense is very good. They're going to score points. Mike, Joe, and I already talked about it. Again, I keep teasing this, but the podcast will be posted tomorrow. It could be a shootout, which we haven't seen a lot of that from Texas Tech, obviously because their offense hasn't been good. But Kansas's defense isn't great. Like you mentioned, their rush defense isn't great, but their offense is really good. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game was could even get to the 40s. And I don't think Tech's going to have a 50-burger this year. But this game could be in the 40s. Like the team, whoever gets to 41st wins. That might be good old-fashioned Big 12 shootout. But having said that, it'll probably be in the teens or something. The last man says, what seems to be the reason for the team not playing to what it seemed to be preseason outlooks after last season? I wish I knew, man. I wish I knew. I mean, the end result is it's been bad football. I mean, the offense has been inefficient. The receivers, for the most part, haven't been good, no matter the quarterbacks. Until now, Barron's starting to stack some good games. He was pretty good against Houston, though he was hurt. He was very good against Baylor. Against Kansas State, he was okay, but he was hurt. He got hurt. And then against TCU tonight, he was very good. I mean, I'll take that every time. 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, passing, 1 rushing, and no turnovers. I mean, you take that every week from Baron Morton. And I think he's going to get better. I really like Baron Morton. I'm a huge Baron Morton fan. I think nobody wants to hear about next year, and I understand that. But I think this could really help Morton in terms of the experience and building towards future seasons. You could see him having, 2 more really quality seasons at quarterback for Texas Tech, and with the benefit of this experience he's getting right now. Now, to answer your question, though, I mean, will there be the penalties or the turnovers or the receivers not being good, the offensive line being – I mean, a lot of the guys that they did add haven't lived up to expectations. I mean, Steve Linton, who didn't play tonight, he was out with back tightness. The offensive line guys, I mean, Spencer's been hurt a lot. He wasn't great before he got hurt. Stats has been, let's face it, he hadn't lived up to the hype. Linton hadn't lived up to the hype except for the Baylor game, and he's been hurt a lot. So, I mean, the transfer portal additions haven't come through. And, Tech has played a lot of sloppy football. And then they have had a lot of injuries as well. So, which is an excuse, but, I mean, it does play a role. It's not the main reason, but it is a reason. So, it's been a lot of things that's equal Texas Tech not being a very good football team overall this year, in my opinion. Though, hey, big win tonight. So, trying to be positive. Matador Mike says, hats off to Rabbit. That's a hardworking young man juggling school, football, and his family, especially with the end of the semester coming up. He was clutching out. He was. And, it's been such a theme that he's had opportunities for turnovers and I hadn't come up with them. And he gets that pick early, and it's called back for roughing the passer, which was a legit call. It was a roughing the passer. And then he had another one. He had an opportunity on that was it was a diving catch. It was a tough catch, but he didn't come up with it. He could have come up with it. He didn't. But then, a big one later, and then, of course, the last one to seal the deal. It almost seemed like the quarterback was playing catch with him sometimes. But part of that's Rabbit being in the right place, And, I'm a big fan of his. He's grown up a lot in his time at Texas Tech. Like you said, becoming a father, he's told me, I can't remember Big 12 media days or local media days or whatever, or just up at the football facility. He's told me at least, more than once that just become – and you want to hear this, right? Whether it be like your friend or just anybody, your brother or whatever, becoming a father should change you. If it doesn't – and it doesn't change everybody. Some people, they just keep on doing what they were doing, and that's – you got to live your life. But, becoming a father really focused Rabbit, and one of the ways it's shown is on the football field. And that's cool to see. You like to see good people making good decisions and having good things happen to them. So, McGuire was talking about him possibly. He was talking to. There were a bunch of NFL scouts there tonight, and he was telling them he because Joe McGuire could sell now, and he was selling Rabbit to those scouts that somebody is going to get thanked by their coach for drafting him. So maybe Rabbit will have a chance. He's a little undersized, but I mean, he's not that. He's 5'11", like 200 pounds, and he could run. So maybe he'll get a shot somewhere and, changes his family's future. That'd be amazing. Lewis Harbor says, what is Jalen Daniels' health situation for next week? Man, I have not even gotten there. I mean, Kansas still has a game this week. It's a great question. And hopefully I'll have something Monday on that. But I haven't even gotten there yet. He hadn't played a lot this year. And I think Bean has been really good. He can run, which presents some problems. So either way, Kansas is going to have a tough offense. Tech's going to be facing a tough offense in Kansas. Joel Himes said, great game. Let's win 2 more. Cherry on top would be to beat UT. I mean, yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, with that, if Tech were to get to a bowl game and then beat Texas in Austin to end, because I don't think Tech and UT are going to play. I know I didn't buy it the first day it was floated out there that Tech and UT were going to play for 20 years or whatever else. They're not going to play for 1 year after this is over. It's Texas. They're going to say whatever they need to say. They're going to jet, and you're not ever going to probably – for a long time anyways, play them. So that's what I expect. So if you can go out beating them 2 in a row, including in Austin, and kind of ruin any chances they have for playoffs or what have you, I mean, of course, that would be amazing. That would be and with that, how much would that change the way people think about this season? It'd still be a disappointing season, but not near as disappointing. Oh, Adrian Slay says, if we make a bowl game, which bowl game are we looking to be playing? It won't be anything great. We actually, if you go to Inside the Red Raiders, this is all free in terms of this part, what I'm telling you. So it isn't like recruiting stuff or other, inside info, but you can sign up for a free email newsletter. All you got to do is give an email. You don't got to, give your credit card number or anything like that, your social security, no information other than a valid email. And then every Sunday I send out like polls, sometimes bowl projections, and Tech hasn't been in the bowl projections here recently, so maybe they'll get back in it. But, I mean, the bowl game is going to be like the Who Gives a Damn Bowl or whatever, .com bowl or whatever. I mean, it's not going to be a big deal. It'll be just the fact that you did make a bowl, you get those extra practices and all that stuff. And, I mean, I'll watch it. I mean, obviously I'll cover it, but, I mean, I would watch it. And against who? Yeah, like I said, we'll have, or if you just want to go to the website, it'll be there, the bowl projections on Sunday. So maybe Tech will be back in it. Sir Nix-a-Lot says, we just don't see him as explosive. Yeah, they're not explosive. I mean, really Xavier White has shown some explosive ability. Dre has the speed, but he's not consistent enough. He doesn't produce enough explosive plays. Taj is I wouldn't call him explosive, but he creates some big play, like, big runs, like 10 to 15 yard, sometimes 20-yard runs. But I wouldn't say he's explosive. Tech doesn't have an explosive element to its offense this year, and that's just the truth. Yeah, GBYO says at least Tech is 3-0 versus the Texas Big 12 teams. I mean, it's true. That's a big deal. I think it's a big deal. Matador Mike says, thanks for the post-game chat, Jared. Good night. Good night, man. Wreck-em. Adrian Slay says, appreciate it. Joe Gutierrez says, the Who Gives a Damn Bowl. I'll watch it. I mean, I'm just saying, it's the truth. A lot of these bowls are meaningless. I mean, a lot of these games, if you're not in the playoffs, some of these big-time prospects won't even play in it, which I don't even have an opinion on that. It's their future. Sometimes guys get hurt, and it really affects their bottom line. So, but then again, I think it's an ultimate team sport, and you should be there for your teammates. So, I mean, I get both sides of the argument. But in terms of Texas Tech, just get to a bowl game at this point. Sir Nix-a-Lot says, just looked very vanilla offense. All respect to Taj. He's a very patient runner. He is a very patient runner. That's something we were talking about in the press boxes. one of the things he is patient, and that's talked about some. Obviously, the power, the determination. Even I hear sometimes people talk about his feet, but he has great vision. The cutback ability and some of their zone blocking schemes, some of their traps. He has great vision. Yeah, he really, other than high end speed, he is the total package. He's a great pass protector. I think he's a better receiver than how he's been utilized at Texas Tech as well. So I think Taj has a bright future in the NFL. I really do. So, but all right, this is my last one. We're going 35 minutes. I still got more stuff to do, but I want to jump on here before we got too late on a Thursday night. I'm going to answer this last one. Ernest Tubb says, I may get criticized for this, but I think Kittley actually called a pretty good game tonight. As much as I've been critical of him this year, I like the swing pass and screens just to change. I thought one thing they did, J.J. Spartman, and I think this is something somebody mentioned that Oklahoma State's been doing, but he's a big physical receiver who, let's be honest, hadn't been utilized as a receiver a whole lot. They used him, sometimes they line him up in the backfield, but a lot of times they brought him in motion and they used him as an extra blocker along with like a Baylor Cup at tight end. So they had some extra oomph right there close to the box in the line of scrimmage in some of those runs leading for Taj. And I think that made a difference. So, I mean, it showed some adjustment. It showed some initiative, some creativity. And it worked. So, yeah, I think Kittley has been justly criticized. I want to make that clear. I've had some real problems. But on the other hand, I think, again, end result guy, I mean, they ran for over almost 150 yards. They won the running game battle against TCU. They were very efficient. Baron Morton, when the opportunities presented themselves, he made the plays. And they didn't turn the ball over. So I didn't like the quarterback run. If that was called, then I hate it. If Kittley was the one who called that, then I hate it. I hate that call for obvious reasons. But for the most part, I have to agree with you. I think Kittley called a good game. And, I mean, you got to go back to getting the dub, and I'm always going to be like that. Doesn't mean that there weren't mistakes made. There were. It doesn't mean I agree with every play call. But overall, Kittley did a good job, did good enough to win. And, it's nice to be doing one of these and to be going into the weekend with the win, again, over an in-state conference opponent rather than another loss, feeling all empty inside and all that. So maybe Texas Tech will get into the who gives the damn bowl. Here's hoping. But I really appreciate y'all watching this and contributing. Thank you very much. Really appreciate Red Ritter Outfitter for all they do for, for me, for the radio show, the Rock and Pregame on Rock 101 FM that I do. And but for now, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.